this is our Achilles heel as humans. We're so lazy. The number one skills lack across the globe when people are hiring is analysts, any kind of analyst.
Hmm.
And it's because for so long, the last 3 decades or so, we've pushed this phrase, "Bring me solutions, not problems." And so as humans, we can't identify problems. I was talking to my friend has 2 13-year-old daughters. They're very intelligent. They know they can Google or ask ChatGPT or whatever, but they don't know what to ask.
The past is gone. Now's the future.
This is the Martech Show, exploring today's marketing technology solutions. Social media, artificial intelligence, augmented reality,
Now's the future.
content, SEO, email, analytics, listening, advertising, and more. I'm your host, Mike Alton, and I'm joined by agency owner and technology futurist Robin Diamond. Each episode explores the latest developments in marketing technology and shares new solutions and innovative approaches that you need to know about to grow your business today. And now, the rest of today's episode. Hey friends, welcome back to the Martech Show. Now, what if I told you that principles from rock and roll can transform AI and revolutionize digital marketing? Digital marketing often struggles to truly captivate and engage audiences, leading to wasted resources and low ROI. Creating content that resonates emotionally with consumers remains a significant challenge for a lot of brands like ours and yours. Despite using various tools and strategies, many marketers might find that their campaigns are falling flat. And that frustration grows as they realize their content lacks the emotional depth needed to make a lasting impact, leading to disconnected audiences and ineffective marketing efforts. Enter Kate Bradley Chernis, who brings a unique perspective to the digital marketing world. As a former rock and roll DJ broadcasting to 20 million listeners a day, Kate has an unparalleled understanding of audience engagement. Now, as the co-founder and CEO of Lately, she leverages the neuroscience of music to drive revolutionary AI technology, and Kate's innovative approach is transforming content creation and digital marketing, offering a fresh and effective way to connect with audiences on a deeper level. Hey, Kate, welcome to the show.
Mike, I love you. That's my best intro yet, ever, 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 ever. So thank you so much. And from one radio person to another here, good job on the read. That was so, I mean, a lot of that stuff is hard to say. So it's amazing. And I have microphone envy also, by the way. My mics are literally in a box over here. I don't know why I've never hooked them up to my situation because when I'm doing voice work, it's usually in the closet now, so not the computer. But anyways, I love seeing you. Thank you so much for having me here today.
I love having you here, but I gotta say, yeah, I think every single time that we've been on camera like this, you're always just using the headset. I didn't even know you owned other microphones.
Yeah, well, so once in a while, I don't get asked to do voiceovers too much anymore because, I have this other job, but it's great money and it's super easy to do. But I like to put a lot of reverb on my voice. I have a Sennheiser. I also have the Michael Jackson microphone. I forget what it's called, but
Mm,
Chris Bro sold it to me, my friend Chris. And my radio voice is a little bit of a different voice.
right?
There you go.
Yeah, we're gonna need to hear more of that, but I'd like for you to talk about that other job. Tell us about Lately, what Lately does, what you do there.
So at Lately, we are really in the business of giving people the words to make others do what they want them to do. It's that simple. That's the whole business of not only marketing, but communication, right? But our sort of jump on that is not only that, but we want them to then become your fans and evangelize the product after the sale, right? And in order to do that, you have to have a lot of trust in play. And we can talk sort of about the nitty gritty of how it works, but that's the headline. We focus specifically on social media. The reason we do that is because there's so much data there. So we can always have a continuous performance learning loop so that the content we're generating is always 100% resonating your voice and then also relevant to your audience. So that's sort of the high level nutshell. You want to go deeper?
Yeah, I do, and I love that concept of a feedback loop because it's something we're talking about more and more, at Agorapulse by just simply looking at the content that you're putting out and making sure that you're paying attention. How does it perform? How are we using that information to leverage and change what we do? But yes, go deeper.
One thing that's pretty funny to me, which is I forget if it was Hootsuite who did this poll, but the least looked at section of any social media management platform happens to be the analytics page, which is shocking.
Yeah.
And it's why this stat is true, which is 99% of all social media posts see zero engagement. Okay. Zero. So, this idea of getting people to do what you want them to do and having the right tools and messaging to do it is obviously a real problem for so many. I'll back up for a little bit to sort of discuss lately and like, why we are sort of a different kind of generative AI, you might say. But as you had mentioned, I was in the radio business. My Uber power, Mike, is turning listeners into fans or customers into evangelists, right? And this is the sort of gift of being able to read a room of 20 million people you've never met before. You can't even see them, right? That's what you learn. And I'm old. Radio was a thing back in the day.
It
And you
still is. You're not
still
that
is.
old.
I still listen to the radio, but I have a high tolerance for like terrible radio. And I yell at the DJ the whole time, like, shut up already. But anyway, so back then you couldn't Google us, really. You couldn't there weren't websites weren't
Right.
happening, you know? There was no social media, and so we were taught to lean into this thing called the theater of the mind. I don't know if you've ever heard of that concept before, but the theater of the mind happens when your imagination kicks in and fills in the blanks, like when you read a book or when you're listening to a podcast like this, for example, right? And you can't see the images, right? And when the theater of the mind is and your brain is engaging in that, it's tapping into obviously imagination, but nostalgia and memory and emotion to kind of kick in this other 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 character, I guess you might say. So, when you read a book, you go to the movie theater and then you're mad because the movie was not as good as the book, right? That's how powerful that
Mhm.
imagination
Mhm.
is. And if imagine this, the author has to know this is going to happen. So they have to allow for this unknown, I'm going to call it a character, the human, the reader, making up parts of the story that they can't control. Now, they can guide it awfully well, and that's what your job is. But the reason you're so mad at the movie not being like the book is because you have ownership in the story now. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. And listening to someone on the air is the same idea. So your imagination kicks in and you're playing this role. And our customers, our listeners were saying they thought I was talking 20 million people. They think I'm talking to them specifically, right? That's crazy. What is that phenomenon? That's what I was really interested in. So then I had this funky experience where I went to my format. Mike, where do you live again? What city are
St.
you in?
Louis.
St. Louis. I can't remember the stations in St. Louis, but the format we worked in was called AAA, or Adult Album Alternative. There's like 100 of them in the country, not very much. It might be, if you've heard some cool rock and roll on NPR, it's basically that kind of music. Originally, these channels broke, The Police and David Bowie and Talking Heads back in the day, but wouldn't be like, Foreigner. That would be classic rock.
You gotta be careful. Today,
Right.
classic rock is not what I grew up with as classic rock.
No, it's not. I mean, because I don't consider I Love Eddie Vedder's new single
It's
cover,
exactly what I was thinking. Pearl
right?
Jam is classic rock
Classic
now to
rock.
people today, and that
No,
hurts me.
that hurts me too. I mean, I'm sorry, but we're friends. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that format is usually like 20th in the market, whereas like country or rock, that would be number one, right? Stuff everybody listens to. And I was number one on this show in Carolina. And my boss called me after I left and when the Arbitron ratings book came out and was like, "What the hell did you do? How were you number one?" And I said, "Well, I threw your playlist out the window," which is true. And I was crafting things in a way where I was designing, new and old together because that's part of what the format is about, but also the segues and the way things sounded together. Like I really love it when someone says to me, "I hated that song until you played it," because you're surrounding it with other familiar touch points that are like it's like making,
Mhm.
I don't know, Brussels sprouts taste good. You just add a little maple syrup, right? And so I was also the production director. This is a long story, but I think it's worth it. And the production director is in charge of making all the commercials and then all of the IDs, all the station IDs that land between the songs. And so it was the me show for the whole 4 hours. But I also wanted to learn more about it. So I read Daniel Levitin's book called This Is Your Brain on Music. That was like a big deal book and very thick. I got through like half of it. But this one part talked a lot about the act of listening to new music. And what happens, Mike, is that your brain instantly accesses every other song you've ever heard over your entire life when it hears a new song. And it's trying to index this new song and
Mm.
find familiar touch points so it knows where to index it in the library of the memory of your brain. Okay. And guess what? When it does that, it pulls on nostalgia and memory and emotion, the same things as theater of the mind. Also, all the things that have to be in place for trust to happen. And when trust is happening and you've made the buying decision, that's when you get the evangelism. Okay. So, one more part to this, which is I was a fiction writing major and I'd written hundreds of commercials and radio. And I saw these parallels between reading and listening. And it occurred to me that when I write, or when you write me an email or a text, or Katie writes me a Slack message, I'm going to hear your voice in my head. And
Mm.
so if you're clever, you're figuring out, well, how do I pull on nostalgia and memory and emotion to get Kate to do what I want her to do and then love me for it? Right? So that is a big component of what we pull into how lately works. So understanding what are the behavioral tendencies of people when they're reading social media messages. Like how do you not only the words, and that's another topic we could discuss, but like what's the motivation behind the words that'll make you do what I want you to do.
And to your point, those words are important. Like I've studied NLP, and you're talking about theater of the mind. It's one of the reasons why one of the most powerful words in the English language is to start a sentence with imagine.
Imagine.
You're
Right.
commanding them to do exactly what you wanna do, because you can't help but not to imagine whatever it is that I'm going to say next, It's
Right.
it's it's like the adage, "Don't think about a blue elephant." Well, everybody listening just thought about a blue elephant, right? And if I tell you, imagine you're walking into the bedroom you grew up in as a child.
Mm.
You're all doing it. Absolutely, you're doing it. So, connect the dots for us. You're talking about the neuroscience and how you've ingrained that into lately in content. How does AI fit into that?
By the way, I used to save my bubble gum on the back of the headboard of my bed. It's
Fun
disgusting.
fact.
In that room, yeah, in that room.
I just made you recall that, didn't you?
Yeah, you did,
Bring
yeah.
that nostalgia.
Bubba Yubba, was that it? No, Hubba Bubba, Hubba Bubba.
Bubba Bubba.
I liked grape. So, the way Lately works is we have been studying social posts for about a decade and what specifically makes them stick, like, what makes you click, like, comment, and share. And what we do is when we use that information to kind of help us understand what will make anybody tick, right? But first thing we do is we study your social media analytics. So you would log in and connect us to your Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or X or whatever accounts, wherever they are. And we're going to jump back to the last 12 months of what you've been publishing there. And we start by creating a baseline and we'll rank what's performing well versus what's not so much. And then we're studying the patterns, two patterns specifically within. So I can see of the content that does work well for you, what's it like? What's it made of? What are the characteristics? What is the tone of voice? What's the phrases, the grammar, the sentence structure? Is it a link in a message? Is it a video in a message? So I can see all these patterns. And the second thing I can do is I can understand from there what makes your unique target audience click, like, comment, and share specifically. What makes them take that action? So we call this a voice model. That's my V. And the voice model, it's a living and breathing thing. It learns over time by understanding what's happening algorithmically on different social platforms, understanding what, Mike specifically is like. So if Mike is constantly publishing about, sexy bowling shirts, then Lately's going to like, and it gets a lot of likes. Lately's going to understand that this is a topic that does well for you, right? But it also then can pull on the information that we've gathered over a decade of all of our other customers, we never share anybody's information, but we do look at patterns and we look at those patterns to help us provide better recommendations, right? So we can understand that. And then my special sauce too. So when I post messages on LinkedIn, I get 86,000 views. Like I'm good at that. So we taught lately a couple hundred sets of basic rules that can really help anybody, cut through that noise. So that's part one there. The second part is the human, as you and I know, Mike, of all people, the human capacity to outperform AI is still very, very high. In fact, AI is reliant on humans to succeed and do well still to this day and will be for some time. And lately is no different. What we've found is that AI alone, fine, but when humans jump in and analyze and course correct it, you see a 7x in ROI. So that's why we've woven this fabric into the platform. And so what happens is if you get a result that you don't like, in any way, if there's any edit that you make, if you trash it all together, the brain goes, oh my God, we didn't do a good job here, we gotta do something else. Or if you're constantly deleting a certain word or replacing that word with something else, you're just training it to learning it smarter over time. And you end up being able to essentially thumbs down and thumbs up what it's surfacing for you to help keep it on the rails, like when you go bowling, like those extra, what do they call it, those extra car
The
rails there.
bumpers.
The bumpers, yeah. I don't use the bumpers. Sometimes I should.
So I imagine that there are like key aspects or principles to music and neuroscience that you've kind of baked into this algorithm. Am I correct in saying that? And could you share what those are? Because I think that might help us understand why a lot of this works the way it does.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. So I worked for Walmart for a few years, and in the Walmart project, there were 20,000 marketers all collaborating on this big idea. And they were from Bank of America and AT&T and T and United Way Worldwide and National Disability Institute. So it was libraries and colleges and little mom and pop shops. Like everybody was participating and trying to help lift the poor out of poverty through income tax credits and financial education. That was the thing. So a lot of acronyms, not very sexy. And I studied what they were doing and I saw all these similar patterns, right? The largest retailer in the world had a really similar problem to the library down the street, and that they didn't understand what worked for them, and when they didn't understand why, right? Generally, as far as like words go. And so I was doing things like, okay, well, in the zip code that we put this advertisement in Salt Lake City, it performed really well. So why don't we take the words there and try them on a Twitter post? Right? This idea of like just taking what works and trying it in different places. And then also, how can you take a national message and then localize it so that the voices of the individuals who want to talk about the same project in a way that would reach their audience, work for them, and not make them sound like super stiff, as you know, Walmart corporate might sound, for example. So that's what we were kind of focused on. And those are the principles that sort of built those couple hundred rules that we have. So I'll give you an example of one, and they're pretty universal, right? Don't undercut your authority with what I call weak words. And there
Mm,
are exceptions, but like these are the words: probably, think, just, maybe, right? I think versus I know. I just wanted to I just wanted to
yeah,
say, right? Yeah. We all do it, like customer
sure.
service should always do that because the customer service, you're taking the back seat, you know?
Yeah.
But sales should not do that. And when you undermine your own authority, guess what? You kill trust, Mike. And trust is why we buy and evangelize. So there's all connected, types of things there. So that's kind of one. And these patterns, like lately knows to not do them, or if it sees you continually do them, it'll actually suggest recommendations and then try to help you understand, why you shouldn't do that. And let me share the proof in the pudding, right? So people are like, okay, I mean, that all sounds nice, but this is social media and like who gives a hoot about it? So the difference between doing it the lately way and not doing the lately way is a 12,000% increased engagement, 245% more clicks, 200% more leads, 40% more sales, and 80% less cost, right? So it's not that this is just nice, fluffy stuff. We
Yeah.
are giving you these suggestions. We are generating this content for you because we know it works.
So it's engendering more trust. What would you say some of the other things that this is doing? And because we engender more trust, that leads to more engagement. It resonates more emotionally. But what else are you doing to the content besides engendering more trust?
The action. So we're compelling people to take the action. And in
Mm,
social, that's clicks, likes, comments, and shares, right? Really, I like to break it down to two, which is just simply clicks and shares. So shares are pretty easy to get in general because what you have to do is appeal to the ego of the person who might be sharing your contact. People
yep.
share content because it makes them look smart, right?
Hmm.
And so that's why Gary Vee's one-liners go viral because everybody wants to say something like, just smile and get up another day or whatever the positive message is, nonsense. But nonsense sells. And
Sorry,
so,
Gary.
yeah, sorry, Gary. It could be anybody.
He's a
Um,
viewer.
yeah, is he? Is he? There. Hi, Gary. GV. So with the shares, I like to think of it back to music as, when someone in college came and played you a record and you're like, oh my God, this is life changing. And then you played it for somebody else and now you get the credit for it. You're the tastemaker. So same idea. So if you're backing into these objectives on social, share or click, and thinking in this way, like so for example, check out my next episode of my show with Kate Bradley Chernis. Nobody gives a shit about that because nobody knows who I am, probably. Checkout is the laziest, most vapid call to action one could use because it doesn't tell you anything about what you get from checking out. There's no it's in fact it's spammy because there's too much mystery there. And then well, let's talk about clicks in a second. So you're not going to get a share out of that. You got to like pull out some kind of nugget of wisdom or
Yeah.
uh, whatever that kind of thing is, and this is what lately does, by the way. So because it's literally running down everything you said, looking for the most shareable content, basically, and the content that will get people to take the action. So that's the clicks. Now, clicks is harder because you have to really trust somebody to click. You have to know what you're going to get if you're going to click, or there's got to be enough mystery there that you want to resolve the answer. So, for example, this is another one of the rules of the journalistic questions: who, what, where, how, why, when. Did I miss any? I don't know. Um, why is the best one because why is always followed by because. Always. Always. And
Yep.
so if you ask, why Kate likes grape purple hubba bubba, and then you put a
Who knows?
link there, who knows? People are compelled to click the link if they think that's interesting because the answer will be there, right? And you get double benefits because there's a question mark, and so all questions beg to be answered. People can't stand not having the answer. It makes you uncomfortable. So you're going to want to click that to find out what it is, and maybe afterwards you'll be like, "Ugh, what a waste of my time." It doesn't matter. So there's little tricks like that that you can use inside the writing that generally apply, that we do apply to what we generate for our customers, but we do it in your voice, and that's really important because I can see, for example, I would write I'm gonna go versus I'm going to go. And Lately knows that and it'll make those corrections for me. Right. Or you know me, Mike, I think I swear it already today, but I swear like a sailor. I try not to online so much. So I make up hyperbole to get my frustrations out and I'll say things like holy hot pickled jalapeno peppers, whatever. Lately knows that and it will insert that content into my yammering.
It's fascinating, and you even made another subtle point because you talked about why followed by because, and because is yet another one of those magic words. If I say because and follow it with a sentence, most people are going to automatically assume that that's true and correct,
That's right. That's right. You
right?
get
And there's a
authority
very
out of it.
famous Harvard study where there was a big line to use the Xerox machine. This was a long time ago, folks, and people could cut in front of the line, and as long as they said because people would allow them to step in front of them to do their copies. And what followed because could be the absolute most ridiculous thing. Because I'm in a hurry. Because I need to make copies. Well, of course you do. We're all in line to make copies, but because you said because, we're just trained psychologically that neuroscience again allows us to just take that next action and assume that that's true. So I appreciate you sharing that. One quick clarification. I'd love for you to just explain a little bit more about the logistics of how Lately works, because I know it's more than just me typing in, here's what I'd like to share on social media. I can share blog posts. What else will Lately read and help me turn into great social content?
Yeah, so we work in a couple of ways. We love it when you ingest long form content, like you said. Like it could be any kind of text, like a blog or a press release, a newsletter, and it could be content that you created for your company. This is my organic coconut water is giving me burps. Sorry. Great. So it could be something that you made, like own media, but it could also be earned media, people writing articles about you, because that's such gold out there, that
Mm,
people don't know how to market. So you can ingest that content into Lately, and it will actually read it with your model in mind, and it's trying to pull out the sexy tidbits that don't give too much information but just enough to want to click or share it, right? And it can give you quotes itself, but it will also rewrite that and take the quote and optimize it for you, which those are the posts that really get the most engagement, obviously, which is really great. And it does this with video and audio too. So like this show, Lately will transcribe the show, give you the transcript if you want. It's going
okay.
to take the model, read the transcript, clip out what's it thinks is going to get the best for you, and clip up the video, so the highlight of Mike talking about because and the power of because, for example. And now you have 40 movie trailers all designed to promote your show. And we can also prompt content too. So if you don't like any you don't have content, or you don't like what you have, you can prompt Lately to create something for you. You can prompt it to create video for you, like, whatever you want. But the loop is analyze social, learn from long form, then optimize it, and then predict what will continue to work. Like that's the flywheel of learning. And we integrate with anyone. I want an integration with you guys. I know.
Hint, hint. Yeah,
Hint,
no,
hint,
right?
yeah. Yeah, but even if you are a massive Agora Pulse plan, you can still play with Lately and just download everything we create for you in a spreadsheet and upload it into Agora Pulse. So we love everybody.
That's right. That's right. Folks, we're talking, if you're just tuning in, with Kate Bradley Chernis about the neuroscience behind effectively using AI and social media marketing. In a moment, we're going to get into some specific examples to help illustrate the point. But first, a quick message about how important it is to measure the success of your social media messaging.
Actually can't say enough great things about the reporting with Agora Pulse. I feel like that is my job security every month. My clients aren't that active on social media, which is why they have me manage their profiles for them. And when they get that report, it verifies that they're making a good investment.
The metrics downloads are so simple and easy to read, and it really helps me show where we are doing things right on social and where we need to improve.
So I think one of the main reasons why we decided to move to Agora Pulse is because it's a more comprehensive, integrated tool for all of our marketing needs. So rather than what we have had to do historically with Sprout, which is use certain parts of that platform that work really well and then supplement it with other outside tools, by moving to Agora Pulse, we were able to keep all of that into one technology platform, which is not only a time saver, but it also makes sure that our analytics and all of our reporting's on point because we're pulling all from the same source.
It's a really great platform for agencies. It makes it really easy to manage, but gives me really, really, really robust information that actually helps me develop better strategies for my clients and better plans of action.
So, Kate, let's get into some examples. Could you share a specific case study or example where Lately's AI, informed by music and neuroscience, actually helped improve someone's engagement or ROI even?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So my good friend Jonathan Weinhart, he's over at Philips Electric or Signify, which is Philips Electric owned company. They sell light bulbs, among other things. So Jonathan had a really good idea. He wanted to do kind of a runoff of Lately and figure out, like, is our old way good? Is the new way better? Like, what's the deal here, right? And so what the plan was, like, let's do a test. Let's have 16 posts written the old way and then 16 written the Lately way, and do a little runoff and see, what happened. So the first win for them was kind of interesting. So they were using an agency and they had in-house content creation, and they were really frustrated because the agency was always getting the key messaging wrong, and so then they were having to go rewrite what the agency was delivering, and that was really frustrating. And then even the in-house content people were having a hard time, you know, getting the voices right. They were creating content for both the brand and then also the individuals that worked there who were doing thought leadership. And between legal and everything, there was just like this whole long product of process of writing drafts and edits and review and blah blah blah. So we cut that workflow in half, and then the second win was what you guys all know AI does so well. We saved them 85% of their time in actual copy
Mm.
creation. Yeah, which is crazy. So the average human takes 12 minutes to write a social post, a single one. They were spending 60 minutes on one because of all of the approvals and legal processes. And then with lately, not just 9 seconds for one. But here's where lately really starts to separate itself from generative AI as you know it, and certainly ChatGPT. So the third win for Jonathan was saving 80% in the cost of their copy creation. So they were spending 40 grand on 200 posts, and now they can spend about $7,000 on the same 200. But the best part, of course, is the results, right, Mike? So for lately, we saw an average reach increase of 115%, average impressions 279%, and average engagements 152%.
That is huge. It's absolutely huge. Love seeing those numbers because that just underscores the whole point and the value of it. But as you know, I've got a whole nother podcast all about AI and marketing. So I'm talking to folks every single day about this. And it's interesting how people come on what I would consider different sides of the fence when it comes to using generative AI for copy, for blog posts, for articles, for newsletters, and for social media. What are some of the misconceptions that you might want to push back on when it comes to using AI for content creation, and how does lately differentiate itself in that space?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. Like, we're lazy. Marketers are lazy. They don't want to do their job, number one. Everybody just wants content for content's sake. And their bosses, though, don't want that. Their bosses want to make money and see results. And when you're using generative AI, it doesn't matter how good at a prompt you are, it can't possibly know anything about your target audience and know what will serve them because there's no analytics that it can reference to understand that. And it can't actually get to your voice either, right? I mean, it's impossible. It's not tied, again, not tied to anything. So that's one thing I think to really think about. And I guess the answer is in that proof of the pudding, right? So if the content you're generating from ChatGPT is getting you 12,000% more engagement than it was before, then great. But I mean, I know it's not. I know it's not.
Right.
I think like the misconception around AI is that it'll be a magic saver, and like I said, 99% of all social media posts, even those created by ChatGPT, because ChatGPT doesn't know what will land either, get zero engagement, right? Still, the human is smarter than the AI. The human is not faster than the AI. That's a different story. Yeah, you can get garbage quickly all day long, but great. What are you going to do? Put more and more noise out into the world? Like that doesn't help you or your brand. So I think the biggest thing is for the people who care about making more money, you have to police your employees because they don't give a fuck about that. They don't. They just want to get their job done and go to lunch.
That is 100% right. There's just too many people who are, to your point, thinking about AI as a magic wand or magic button and just saying, yeah, output me this, output me that. I do think if you spent enough time, you can train Claude or ChatGPT or one of these large language models to speak in your voice and do all the things. But I love this is why I love tools like lately because you decided this is where we're going to help marketers and this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to leverage AI and we're going to build in all the things that you should be doing yourself if you were going to use a large language model natively, but most people don't. Most people aren't crafting, massive custom GPTs and loading up personas and analytics and draft documents and examples of blog posts for writing to get their tone and everything so that they could have all that and then ask a simple prompt and get an amazing response, but you've got all that built in.
Yeah, it would take too long. I mean, so Lately can learn the voice of every single employee in your country, in your country, in any country, but in your company in about 30 seconds, right? So you can't
Yeah.
possibly ingest enough content for ChatGPT to do that for every employee because it's just impossible because that would be superhuman, heavy. One of the other things I think is really important to think about is that human contribution we talked about with the theater of the mind. Remember how powerful that is when you play a role in the process, that ownership that you feel is what drives home the engagement, the connection, the sale, right? And the evangelism. And that's another thing is like, thinking beyond the sale, how valuable is that evangelism on top of it? That's what longevity is in any company. Netflix got it really right, by the way. So they used automation to learn the patterns of what we all wanted to watch. Remember those little origami envelopes that we all had to put together? And they were recommending some stuff based on what we watched, but then they got real smart because they could see the patterns were so clear. So they're like, let's spend $10 million on every show of The Crown because now we know we can make it, right? So that's the difference of when you're actually using AI in a way where it's getting you that gangbuster results, not just doing the sort of the automated, kind of nonsense. The other story I like to tell, Mike, is the Betty Crocker story. I don't know if I told you this before, but it's a good one. So you like cake in a box, I assume? Yes.
Doesn't everybody?
I hope so. I mean, did you know you can freeze it, by the way? You can like make half the cake and freeze the batter and then make it again later. I do that because I don't eat cake, but my husband likes cake on his birthday, so I make him half a cake every year. So when Betty Crocker was coming out and with their cake in a box in the 50s or 60s, whatever it was, they were selling to housewives, of course. And the pitch was like, boom, this is cake. And the housewives thought it was so weird because they didn't feel any ownership because they didn't feel like they were making anything. And so Betty Crocker took the powdered egg out, and then the slogan became just add an egg, and the sales skyrocketed because now the housewives felt like they actually did some baking here, right? So this idea of the human collaboration with the results, right, that come out. So whether you're using Lately or ChatGPT, it doesn't really matter. Like you have to take the results that come out, you have to course correct and analyze them. Lately will learn from what you're doing. ChatGPT will not, by the way, because you can't feed it back into a continuous performance learning loop. But anyways, even that step of doing that is so important because the results that you will see of the readership or engagement or whatever it is you're looking for will be 7x, right? That's Harvard Business Review did this study, not me.
Right. Yeah. In fact, it's funny because this is why Ethan Mollick, the Wharton professor, has said ChatGPT's naming model is absurd. It doesn't mean anything. The most, we're recording this on September 18th. They just released ChatGPT 4.0 dash preview. What does that mean to anybody outside of that organization? A 1.0 dot preview. Whereas you look at Microsoft, and what is Microsoft's AI solution called? Copilot.
Copilot. Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant marketing there because it sets the expectation right from the start. Oh, this is not taking over. It's not taking my job. It's here to help me. It's here to sit in the seat next to me and allow me to do my work because I'm still the pilot. I'm still flying this
That's right.
plane. At least that's what we tell ourselves, right? So
Yeah.
how do you see all this playing out? How do you see the future of generative AI evolving? And I know that's a really hard question with a technology that's evolving so quickly. What do you think marketers should be aware of today?
Yeah, I mean, no one well, in our world, in the writing world, people can pretty much still smell AI and sniff it out quickly. They can tell. I mean, God, LinkedIn, kill me now. Every suggestion it
Oh
makes to
gosh.
me is so bad, right?
Yeah.
Like has nothing to do with me or my voice or anything. It's so like they're just got Emily Post stuck up their ass. I'm like, guys, this is so stiff, really. But so that said though, like I've said this before, is the like on a food, the label, like we're gonna have something that says like X percentage of this was written by AI. I imagine that. Hopefully we won't go too crazy with that. Like I just noticed on TV now with the ratings, it says stuff like may contain smoking, like or may contain kissing. Kissing is too much
Oh
for someone to
gosh.
watch. Jesus Christ, we're oversensitized. But anyways, so that I'm curious of when that's going to happen and what kind of regulations will be there. With the okay, again, we're sticking to text here. Now, I don't even want to talk about video and deep fakes and all that kind of stuff because that's too
Yeah.
crazy. The storage, by the way, my husband is in this field, which is really interesting. The storage mines the data housing for AI is actually suddenly exploding because people are starting to ask it smarter questions than
Yeah.
before. So it has to, and bigger questions. So it needs more, it's taking up more energy. So it's going to be driving one of the biggest sort of energy sucks on the planet pretty quickly. So that's just an interesting thing to know and consider. For me, we're always trying to think about how can we get humans to want to do the work that it takes to get the optimal results, because this is our Achilles heel as humans. We're so lazy, and we've even trained ourselves to be this lazy, Mike. So like the number one skills lack across the globe when people are hiring is analysts, any kind of analyst.
Hmm.
And it's because for so long, the last 3 decades or so, we've pushed this phrase, bring me solutions, not problems. And so as humans, we can't identify problems. So it's like I was talking to my friend has two 13-year-old daughters. They're very intelligent. They know they can Google or ask ChatGPT or whatever, but they don't know what to ask. They don't know what to
Mhm.
Google, right? So they're the opposite of deductive reasoning, whatever that is. They don't know how to back into the solution, I guess you might say. So I find that really fascinating, and especially because of what we talked about before. Right now, AI and humans are 100% reliant on each other. It's a symbiotic union for one to exist and serve us well, for both to serve us well, right? The AI needs the humans to analyze and course correct what it puts out. Yet we suck at it.
Yeah, right. Well, and that actually brings us all the way back to one of the first things you said, which is that most social media managers are not looking at their analytics because they don't know what questions to ask. So why bother looking at a report that's filled with all kinds of numbers and graphs and things going in directions I don't understand? I don't know what to ask of that.
Yeah, that's
But I think this
the
is where AI is going to help us. AI is soon
yeah.
going to be able to read that. We're be able to have a conversation then with the report rather than just look at a graph and try to figure it out.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, so the number one question we get asked by my customers is like, so we surface word clouds that will show you like the words that are generating the most engagement for you. And so to me, this is so obvious. Look at the word clouds, the big ones. Go use those more, right? Very easy. Oh, and guess what? You could take this information and do other stuff with it too. So if you want to know the topic for your next podcast, go look here. There it is. It's in black and white. I can tell you what your customers care about. But people don't. So like I still will be running through their analytics with them, my human self, and telling them this information. It's like a shock to them. And this is a shock. And this is Mike, this is like the top agencies in the world, some of the largest companies in the world. So it doesn't have anything to do with money or whatever. It's like people either they don't want to understand it or they're too impatient. I mean, granted, this morning one of my sales team members shot me a big page full of numbers and I was like, dude, what does this mean? I don't have time to read the numbers. I'm like, just give me the bottom line here. So
Mhm.
guilty, totally get that. But and we're working on automating this, by the way, now because we know we have to. Although it is you've asked a lot of questions that proves this point today. People do want to know how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
They're curious about it for sure. And for us, like that's been a very interesting thing to talk about because we're not a large language model. We are an algorithm that sits on your language model, which is your social media analytics, right?
Mhm.
Combined with other people's. And that education has been really difficult because now people have expectations of what generative AI is, and I'm something else. So those are my problems.
That's what we're working towards. But yeah, to your point, I mean, one of the things that we added to Agorapulse on the mobile app was you can go to reports and you can get an AI generated summary of those
Awesome.
reports because people don't want to spend a whole lot of time in the numbers if that's not their job. So I
Right.
totally get that. Folks, we are pretty much out of time, which is a shame because I know Kate, you and I can talk about these kinds of things for hours. But
I
for
love
folks who
you.
do want to know more, they want to learn more about either your incredible career or they just want to know more about lately, where can they go to connect with you?
Oh, thanks, Mike. So I'm Kate Lee at Lately in a million places. So you can find me. Hey, Brad, how's it going? But lately is lately.ai. That's really easy. And if you find me on social, definitely tell me that you met me with Mike so I can high five Mike in the background. And if you have any questions about AI, best practices, anything like that, let me know. And thanks so much, Mike. I love you, man.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, all of you, for watching and listening. We appreciate you. Don't forget to find the Martech Show on Apple, your favorite podcast platform, and leave us a review. We'd love to know what you think. Take care. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Martech Show, hosted by Robin Diamond and Mike Alton, powered by AgoraPulse, the #1 rated social media management solution, which you can learn more about at agorapulse.com. If you want to make sure you're part of our audience during live weekly broadcasts, take a look at our calendar at agorapulse.com/calendar, or click the subscribe button in your email once you register for any of these events. Is there a particular tool or topic you'd like to see us talk about? Or perhaps you think your solution should be featured? Email me at mike@agorapulse.com.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Hennika Watkins-Porter hosts The Entrepreneurial You, empowering entrepreneurs with insights on leadership, business, and success. Hennika, tell listeners what to expect from your show.
So we provide innovative business strategies and practical solutions to common entrepreneurial challenges.
And where can people subscribe?
Find us at hennikawatkisporter.com, as well as the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcasts.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.